The flames roared high, licking at the metal walls of the alien outpost. The heat made the air shimmer, and smoke curled upward like a dark hand trying to strangle the sky. In the middle of it all, an alien girl named Arya was tied to a steel post, her wrists bound with glowing restraints. Her wide silver eyes reflected the fire that crept closer inch by inch. Around her stood a group of hostile raiders laughing cruelly. Their armor clattered as they moved, their strange weapons gleaming in the firelight. They were not her people, and they were not human. They were scavengers, merciless and hungry for fear. Tonight they had chosen Arya to be their lesson, a warning to others who dared resist them. She struggled weakly, her voice breaking as she cried out, "Please, don't do this!" Her pleas were swallowed by the crackle of burning fuel. The raiders only jeered louder. One of them shoved a torch closer, its flames nearly brushing her skin. The smell of smoke stung her nose. She squeezed her eyes shut, heart pounding in terror. In her mind, she thought of her family, of the quiet fields she once walked under alien moons. She thought of the songs her mother used to hum. And then she thought, this is the end. I will be nothing but ashes. The fire surged closer, the heat unbearable now. Her skin glistened with sweat, her breath shallow. She whimpered as the torch lifted higher. Seconds away, she was seconds away from becoming nothing more than alien roast. Then it happened. A voice rang out through the smoke. "Enough!" The raiders froze, turning toward the shadows at the edge of the firelight. A figure stepped forward, tall and defiant, silhouetted by the blaze. It was a human. His clothes were torn from travel. His boots blackened with soot, but his eyes blazed brighter than the fire itself. In his hands he held a steel rod, the only weapon he had. The raiders laughed at first. "A human?" One sneered. "You dare stand against us?" But the human didn't flinch. His name was Ryan, and though he had no armor, no squad, and no plan beyond this moment, he stepped forward like a soldier marching into destiny. His voice was steady. "Let her go, or you'll answer to me." Arya's eyes flew open. She gasped softly, staring at the stranger who had come out of nowhere. Her heart raced, not only from fear now, but from a spark of hope she didn't dare believe. The raiders mocked him, circling closer. "You are alone, human. You can't stop us." Ryan's grip on the steel rod tightened. His chest rose and fell, sweat trickling down his brow, but his eyes never left theirs. "Try me." The tension in the air grew sharp, like a blade about to strike. The fire crackled, the smoke thickened, and the raiders' laughter died down. For the first time they realized this human was not afraid. One of them lunged. Ryan moved faster than they expected. He swung the rod with all his strength, striking the raider across the helmet. Sparks flew, and the raider collapsed to the ground with a heavy crash. The others shouted in rage, raising their weapons. Ryan stood tall, his shoulders squared. Behind him, Arya's breath caught. For the first time that night, her lips whispered words of hope. "He came for me." The battle had only begun, but already the fire no longer felt like her executioner. It felt like a witness to something greater. The moment a lone human stood against impossible odds, not for glory, not for power, but to save a life that was seconds away from being lost. And in that instant, Arya knew this stranger might be her only chance to live. The torch dropped into the dirt as the first raider fell. Sparks hissed in the smoke and silence hung for a moment. Then, like a wave breaking, the other raiders roared in anger. "Kill him," one shouted, raising a jagged blade that glowed with heat. Ryan barely had time to catch his breath. He shifted his grip on the steel rod, his muscles tense. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might break his ribs, but he didn't let fear win. His eyes locked on Arya. She was still bound, the fire at her feet creeping closer. She had only minutes, he gritted his teeth. "I don't have to win. I just have to keep her alive." The first raider charged. Ryan sidestepped and swung hard, the rod smashing against the raider's side. The alien staggered but didn't fall. Another came from behind, and Ryan spun just in time, blocking the strike. The force rattled his bones, but he shoved back, sweat dripping from his brow. Arya gasped, watching helplessly. Every strike echoed in her chest. She whispered under her breath, "Please, don't die." Ryan fought with desperation. He had no training, no energy shield, no high-tech weapon. All he had was grit. His rod clanged against alien armor again and again, each blow fueled by the thought of the girl about to be burned alive. But there were too many. One raider struck his arm, slicing his sleeve and leaving a shallow cut. He hissed in pain, his grip faltering. Another slammed a fist into his stomach and Ryan staggered, nearly falling. The raiders laughed cruelly. "Pathetic human," one snarled. "You think you can fight us alone?" Ryan spat blood into the dirt, his chest heaving. "Alone's enough," he growled. Then he lunged again, swinging wildly, driving them back step by step. The fire flared higher, the heat stinging Arya's skin. She winced as sparks landed on her arms, her voice breaking. "Hurry, please!" Her plea cut through Ryan's exhaustion like lightning. His vision blurred, his body screamed for rest, but his will hardened. He roared, slamming the rod into the ground to knock dust into the raiders' faces. In the brief distraction, he rushed forward, battering one with a strike to the leg. The alien crumpled, howling in pain. The others hesitated. They had expected an easy kill. But this human fought like a cornered beast, refusing to fall even when outnumbered. One of them snarled and raised his weapon toward Arya. Ryan's blood ran cold. "No!" He hurled himself forward, smashing into the raider before the blade could fall. The two crashed into the dirt, rolling dangerously close to the fire. Ryan's skin seared from the heat, but he didn't care. He drove his elbow into the alien's face until the helmet cracked. The raider slumped unconscious. Arya's eyes widened. She whispered, half in awe, half in terror, "He's insane." The remaining raiders pulled back slightly, their confidence shaken. One muttered to the others, "He fights like he has nothing to lose." Ryan staggered to his feet, chest heaving, his rod barely clutched in his bloody hands. His voice came ragged but firm. "Anyone else?" The raiders hesitated. Smoke swirled around them, the fire crackled, and for a brief second none dared step closer. Arya's heart pounded. This wasn't just bravery. This was madness, the kind of madness only humans seem to carry. She had heard stories of humanity's defiance, how they stood against storms, beasts, and wars that should have crushed them. But to see it here right in front of her was something else entirely. Yet the danger wasn't over. The leader of the raiders finally stepped forward, his armor heavier, his weapon longer and sharper. His voice was low and cold. "Enough games. Finish him." The others growled in agreement, circling Ryan once more. Ryan tightened his grip on the rod. His arms shook. His legs felt like stone, but he refused to back down. He whispered to himself, "One more step. One more breath. Keep going." Arya saw his resolve, and something inside her shifted. She had been moments from death, ready to give up. Now, watching this human fight for her, she felt a surge of hope and guilt. He was risking his life, bleeding for her, and she could do nothing. Tears blurred her vision. "Don't stop, human," she whispered. "You're all I have." The leader lunged forward, his weapon aimed straight at Ryan's chest. Ryan raised the rod with both hands, bracing for the blow. His body screamed in pain, but his spirit refused to bend. For Arya's sake, he would not fall. And as the strike came crashing down, the fire around them roared higher, casting their battle in blinding light. The leader's weapon crashed down with brutal force. Ryan braced himself, the steel rod straining under the impact. His knees buckled, the ground trembling beneath him. The sound of metal screeching against metal echoed through the burning camp. For a terrifying moment, Ryan thought his bones would snap. His arms shook violently. The rod bent, and the weight of the alien's blade pressed closer and closer to his chest. The leader sneered through his helmet. "Weak human. Die with her," Arya screamed. Her voice cut through the fire and smoke. "No!" Her cry jolted Ryan like lightning. He clenched his jaw, his muscles screaming in protest. He couldn't win this with brute force, he knew that. But humans weren't known only for strength. They were known for finding a way when none existed. His eyes darted around. Sparks from the fire, loose chains near the raiders' gear pile, a barrel leaking fuel. His mind worked fast, piecing them together like gears in a machine. With a sudden roar, Ryan twisted sideways, letting the leader's blade crash into the dirt instead of his chest. At the same time, he shoved the steel rod into the barrel of fuel. It tipped, spilling dark liquid across the ground. Flames leapt instantly, racing toward the raiders' feet. The aliens shouted in alarm, stumbling back. The fire forced them apart, breaking their formation. The leader snarled, but even he had to retreat from the growing blaze. Ryan staggered up, coughing from the smoke. His body ached. Blood dripped from his arm, but a grim smile tugged at his lips. Not so easy, is it? Arya's silver eyes widened in shock. This human wasn't stronger. He wasn't faster, but he was clever, turning the chaos of the battlefield into his ally. The raiders regrouped quickly, their weapons raised. Enough tricks, one snarled. Ryan wiped blood from his mouth. You haven't seen anything yet. He dashed toward the pile of raider gear, grabbed one of the loose chains and swung it in a wide arc. The heavy link smashed into a raider's legs, yanking him off balance. Before the alien could rise, Ryan slammed his rod down across the raider's helmet. The crack of impact rang out and the alien collapsed. The others hesitated again. Their prey was supposed to be helpless, but this human was fighting like a wildfire, impossible to control, impossible to predict. Arya pulled at her restraints desperately, her voice hoarse. "Ryan, behind you!" He spun just in time. The leader charged again, blade raised high. Ryan ducked, the weapon slicing air inches above his head. He drove the chain upward, wrapping it around the leader's arm. With a grunt, he yanked hard, dragging the weapon down. The leader roared, twisting against him, but Ryan refused to let go. The struggle became a test of willpower, raw alien strength against human stubbornness. Ryan's muscles screamed, his vision blurred, but he thought of Arya's terrified face, of the seconds she had left before being burned alive. He couldn't stop. He wouldn't stop. With one last desperate pull, Ryan dragged the leader into the spilled fuel. Flames shot upward, surrounding them both. The alien howled, releasing the weapon as fire licked at his armor. Ryan kicked him backward into the blaze. The other raiders shouted, trying to douse the flames, but chaos had already erupted. Ryan dropped the chain, staggering back toward Arya. His chest heaved, every breath burning like fire in his lungs. He raised the steel rod and smashed it against her restraints. Once. Twice. Sparks flew. On the third strike, the glowing binds shattered. Arya stumbled forward, free at last. She gasped, clutching his arm. You saved me." Ryan nodded weakly, his face pale with exhaustion. "Not yet. We still have to get out." The leader, still ablaze, staggered from the fire, roaring in rage. His armor cracked, glowing red-hot. His eyes burned with hatred. Ryan raised the rod again, though his arms trembled. He had nothing left. One more strike, maybe two. That was all. Arya looked at him, her heart pounding. For the first time, she saw beyond his bloodied face and broken body. She saw the spirit inside him, the spirit that refused to give in, no matter the odds. Her throat tightened. "You're not alone anymore," she whispered. She grabbed a fallen raider's weapon, her hands shaking but determined. Side by side with Ryan, she raised it toward the leader. The fire roared around them, shadows dancing across their faces. The human and the alien girl standing together against a monster. The battle wasn't over. But for the first time, Arya believed they had a chance. The firelight flickered wildly, throwing long shadows across the burning outpost. The raider leader loomed over them, his armor cracked and glowing from the heat. His chest heaved with rage, his weapon sparking where the flames had scorched it. He pointed it straight at them, his voice like gravel. "You will both die here." Arya's hand shook as she raised the stolen weapon. Her grip was clumsy, her arms trembling. But she stood firm beside Ryan. He glanced at her, blood running down his cheek. His steel rod bent but still clutched in his hand. "You don't have to fight," Ryan said through ragged breaths. Arya shook her head, her silver eyes burning with resolve. "You freed me. You nearly died for me. I won't stand by while you fight alone." The leader roared and charged. His massive blade came down in a deadly arc. Ryan shoved Arya aside and met the blow with his rod. The impact rang like thunder, sending shocks of pain through his arms. Sparks flew. The rod bent further, threatening to snap. Arya scrambled up and fired the alien weapon. The blast struck the leader's shoulder, scorching his armor. He staggered back a step, then snarled and swung toward her. Ryan lunged, slamming his rod against the leader's side. The blow barely dented the armor, but it drew his attention away from Arya. "Over here, you bastard," Ryan shouted. The leader turned, his burning eyes locking on him. The clash began again, each strike heavier, each block more desperate. Ryan's muscles screamed, his wounds throbbed, but he held on. He wasn't fighting for himself. He was fighting for her. Arya's chest rose and fell in quick bursts. Her hands tightened around the weapon, her mind racing. She couldn't just stand there firing wildly. She had to think like Ryan, fast, clever, desperate. Her gaze darted to the ropes still burning at the post where she'd been tied. Above them, a beam of wood hung loose, half-burned, creaking as it threatened to fall. If she could time it right. "Ryan!" she shouted. "Move left." He didn't question her. He trusted her. With a grunt, he rolled aside just as the leader swung down. The blade smashed into the dirt. At that same moment, Arya fired at the beam. The wood cracked, snapped, and crashed down onto the leader's back. The raider roared, pinned under the burning weight. He thrashed, his armor scraping against the ground, sparks flying as the flames licked higher. Ryan staggered up, coughing, and looked at her in disbelief. Nice shot. Her cheeks flushed, though soot smeared her face. I learned from you. Together, they pressed the attack. Ryan swung his bent rod again and again, slamming it against the leader's helmet. Arya fired blast after blast, each shot searing into the armor. The leader's roars grew weaker, his strength failing. Finally, with one last strike, Ryan drove the rod into the raider's visor. The glass shattered. The leader fell still, his body collapsing into the flames. Silence. Only the crackle of fire remained. Ryan dropped the rod, his chest heaving. His knees buckled and he nearly collapsed, but Arya rushed forward, catching him. "Easy," she whispered, her arms supporting him. He managed a tired smile. "Told you. We'd make it." Her silver eyes shimmered as she looked at him, her heart pounding. A strange warmth spread through her chest, not just relief, but something deeper. She realized she had never seen such raw courage before, never felt so protected, never believed in someone so completely. But their moment of peace was short-lived. In the distance, more shouts echoed. The remaining raiders were regrouping, furious at their leader's fall. Arya's breath caught. "They're coming back," Ryan grimaced, forcing himself to stand. "Then we run. Together." She nodded, gripping his arm tightly. They stumbled away from the burning post, the flames lighting their path. Behind them, the camp filled with chaos, the enemy closing in. Ahead of them lay only darkness and uncertainty. But for the first time, Arya didn't feel alone. A human had stood against the fire for her, and now, side by side, she would stand with him. The flames of the raider camp still burned behind them, staining the sky with smoke. Ryan and Arya stumbled into the night, their shadows long against the alien sand. Every step was heavy, every breath ragged, but neither dared stop. Arya clutched his arm to steady him. His cuts and bruises were worse than he admitted. She glanced at him, her silver eyes full of worry. "You're bleeding too much." Ryan shook his head, forcing his legs forward. "I'll live. We just have to get as far from here as possible before they regroup." As if to mock him, a distant horn blared from the camp. The haunting sound echoed across the desert, a signal of pursuit. Arya's breath caught. "They're coming." Ryan tightened his jaw. "Then we run faster." The alien desert stretched endlessly, lit only by two pale moons. Jagged rocks jutted from the ground like broken teeth, and strange glowing plants swayed in the night wind. It was a hostile, unforgiving place, yet to Arya it was home. "Follow me," she whispered urgently, pulling him toward the rocks. "There are caves nearby. They can hide us." Ryan followed without question, though every muscle screamed. His chest burned, his vision blurred, but his stubborn will pushed him onward. He thought of the raiders' laughter, of the torch at Arya's feet, of the seconds she had left before he appeared. That memory kept him moving. Behind them, the sound of boots and guttural shouts grew louder. The raiders were closing in. Arya led him into a narrow canyon where the walls rose high and cast long shadows. Strange creatures with glowing eyes darted away as they passed. The air smelled damp and metallic. "There," Arya pointed to a crack in the stone. It looked impossibly narrow, but she squeezed inside, pulling Ryan after her. They pressed through the gap into a hidden cavern, its ceiling glittering with bioluminescent crystals. The light cast a soft glow over the jagged floor. Ryan leaned against the wall, gasping for air. His body trembled, his shirt soaked with sweat and blood. Arya knelt beside him, her hands hovering uncertainly over his wounds. "You shouldn't be moving at all." He gave a weak grin. "I don't have much choice, do I?" Her eyes softened, and for a moment she just looked at him, her expression caught between gratitude and fear. "Why did you come for me?" she asked quietly. Ryan blinked at her, surprised by the question. "Because you were about to die. Because no one else was going to help. And because—" "I couldn't stand there and watch." Her throat tightened. She had grown up hearing that humans were reckless, impulsive, even dangerous. But now, staring at him through the glow of the crystals, she saw something different. Recklessness, yes, but also courage. A courage her own people rarely showed. Before she could reply, voices echoed faintly from outside the canyon. The raiders, Arya's eyes widened. "They're close." Ryan forced himself upright, wincing in pain. "We can't stay here." "No." she whispered, shaking her head. We can. They'll pass us if we stay quiet. They pressed against the stone wall, holding their breath. The shadows of the raiders flickered across the canyon entrance, their guttural voices carrying through the night. Ryan's hand instinctively moved to the bent steel rod he still carried, though it was barely more than scrap now. The raiders paused near the cavern. Ryan's muscles tensed. One wrong move, one sound, and they'd be caught. Arya's hand suddenly slipped into his. He glanced at her in surprise, but she didn't look at him. Her eyes were fixed on the entrance, her face pale, her grip trembling but firm. The moments dragged on like hours. Finally, the raiders' voices faded, their footsteps moving away into the night. Silence returned. Arya exhaled shakily and released his hand. Her cheeks glowed faintly in the crystal light. Sorry, she whispered. Ryan shook his head. Don't be. His chest tightened, not from pain this time, but from something harder to name. They sank onto the cavern floor, exhaustion pulling at them both. Ryan leaned back, his eyes closing. We can't run forever. They'll keep hunting us. Arya looked at him, her eyes shimmering. Then we don't run. We find a way to end this. He opened his eyes, meeting hers. You sound like me. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. Maybe I'm learning. For the first time since the fire, Ryan let out a quiet laugh. It hurt, but it was real. Good, because we're going to need all the cleverness we've got. The fire behind them was gone, but the danger ahead was worse. The raiders would not stop until both of them were ashes in the sand. Yet here in the quiet glow of the cavern, Ryan and Arya knew one thing for certain. They would not face it alone. The cavern was quiet. Too quiet. Ryan leaned against the stone wall, his chest heaving as he tried to rest, but something gnawed at him. Silence meant danger. Raiders weren't the type to give up so easily. Arya sat nearby, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the crystal light. She studied his wounds, worry creasing her brow. You need medical care, she whispered. Ryan shook his head. We need distance, not doctors. They'll be back. They'll never stop. Her throat tightened. She knew he was right. The raiders had lost their leader, humiliated by a single human. They wouldn't forgive it. They'd come with everything they had. And now she and Ryan were the targets. A faint crunch echoed outside the cavern. Boots on stone, voices murmuring in the alien tongue. Arya's blood ran cold. They've found us. Ryan forced himself upright, his body screaming in protest. He tightened his grip on the bent steel rod. Then we make our stand here. She stared at him, her pulse racing. We can't fight them all. There are too many. His gaze hardened. Then we fight until we can't. Before she could reply, the entrance exploded with blinding light. Raiders poured in, their armor gleaming in the glow of the crystals. Their weapons hummed, filling the cavern with deadly energy. Ryan pushed Arya behind him. Stay low, the first raider lunged. Ryan swung the rod with every ounce of strength left, the impact ringing through the cavern. The alien staggered back, but another took his place. Plasma bolts seared the stone, sending sparks raining down. Arya ducked, her hands scrambling for the fallen weapon she'd carried from the camp. Her fingers trembled, but she aimed and fired. A bolt of energy struck one raider square in the chest, dropping him instantly. Ryan glanced at her in surprise. She met his eyes, her face flushed but determined. I'm not hiding anymore. He gave a quick, grim smile. Good, then fight with me. Together they battled in the narrow cavern. Ryan swung and struck, his movements wild but relentless. Arya fired shot after shot, her aim growing steadier with each blast. For a moment it felt possible. They could hold them back, but more raiders forced their way inside, their numbers overwhelming. Ryan's arms grew heavier, each swing slower than the last. A plasma bolt grazed his leg, sending him to one knee. Ryan! Arya screamed, rushing to his side. She fired wildly, her bolt scattering sparks off the stone. The raiders pressed closer, their cruel laughter echoing. Ryan forced himself up, his voice ragged. Keep fighting! Don't stop! His stubbornness lit something inside her. Her fear melted into fire. She planted her feet and fired with fierce precision, dropping another raider. She stood tall now, no longer the helpless girl tied to a post. She was a fighter. The raiders hesitated, their formation faltering. The human and the alien girl, bloodied and exhausted, stood shoulder to shoulder, refusing to fall. But then the cavern shook. A massive figure ducked through the entrance, taller, broader, clad in heavy armor scorched from the flames of the camp. The leader hadn't died.
He had survived. Ryan's heart sank.
You've got to be kidding me. The leader's voice boomed, his visor glowing red. You humiliated me, human. You burned me, scarred me. Now you'll watch her die before I tear you apart. Arya's hands trembled, but she raised her weapon higher. You'll touch neither of us. The leader laughed, a terrible sound. He stepped forward, raising his massive blade. The other raiders cheered, their weapons pounding against their armor. Ryan's grip tightened on the rod. His body was broken, his strength nearly gone, but his eyes burned with defiance. He leaned close to Arya, whispering, "No matter what happens, don't give up. Promise me." Her throat tightened. Tears welled in her eyes, but she nodded. "I promise." They turned back toward the enemy. The cavern glowed with the light of weapons, the air thick with smoke and tension. The leader charged, his blade raised high. Ryan and Arya braced themselves, standing together against the storm. The last stand had begun. The cavern shook as the raider leader charged forward. His blade glowing hot, his armor cracked but terrifying. The air trembled with his roar, echoing off the crystal walls. Behind him, the remaining raiders pounded their weapons in rhythm, a drumbeat of doom. Ryan tightened his grip on the bent steel rod. His body ached, every wound screaming for rest, but his eyes burned with stubborn fire. He glanced at Arya beside him, her silver eyes bright with fear but hardened by determination. "This is it," he whispered. She nodded, her voice trembling but steady. Together, the leader swung his blade down. Ryan shoved Arya aside and raised his rod to block. The impact sent a shockwave through the cavern, crystals shattering overhead. The rod bent further, nearly snapping in two. Ryan grunted, forcing the weapon aside, but the sheer power drove him to one knee. The leader sneered. "Weak human. You should have let her burn." Ryan spat blood, his voice raw. "Not my style." Arya raised her weapon and fired. The bolt struck the leader's chest, scorching the armor but not piercing it. The giant turned his fury toward her. He swung wide, his blade cutting a burning arc through the air. "Arya!" Ryan roared. He lunged, shoving her back just in time. The blade grazed his side, searing flesh. Pain exploded through him, but he stayed on his feet, refusing to fall. Arya's eyes filled with tears. "You can't keep taking the hits for me." Ryan forced a grin through the pain. "It's what humans do best," the leader growled, lifting his weapon again. Ryan's strength was nearly gone. He couldn't block another strike. Arya's mind raced, her eyes darting to the glowing crystals above. An idea sparked. "Ryan, the crystals!" she shouted. He followed her gaze. The ceiling glistened with fragile light, hanging like stars ready to fall. With his last burst of strength, Ryan swung the rod upward, striking the cavern wall. Cracks shot through the stone, crystals trembling loose. Arya fired her weapon at the fault lines, the blasts exploding in bursts of light. The ceiling gave way. Shards of glowing crystal rained down, crashing onto the leader. He roared in fury, swinging blindly, but the collapse buried him deeper and deeper. The cavern shook as boulders tumbled, dust filling the air. Ryan grabbed Arya's hand. "Run!" Together they sprinted as the cavern collapsed behind them. Rocks thundered down, sealing the leader in a glowing tomb of crystal and fire. His roars faded into silence. They burst out into the night air, stumbling onto the desert sand. The moons hung high above, casting pale light over their battered forms. Behind them, the canyon rumbled, then fell quiet. Ryan dropped to his knees, gasping for air. Blood stained his side, his strength nearly spent. Arya knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she pressed against the wound. "You're hurt too badly," she whispered, her voice breaking. He shook his head weakly. "I'm still here. Here." Her eyes shimmered with tears. "You saved me again. You always save me." He gave a faint smile. "Guess I'm getting good at it." She laughed softly through her tears, then grew serious. "Ryan, among my people, when someone gives everything for another, when they bleed and nearly die for you, it means more than friendship. It means bond, life bond." His chest rose and fell, his voice weak but steady. "Then I guess I'm bonded." Her blush deepened, but she didn't look away. Instead, she pressed her forehead to his, her voice a whisper. "And so am I." They sat there under the moons, their breaths mingling, the night air cool against their burned skin. Around them, the desert stretched silent and endless, but neither felt alone anymore. In the distance, the surviving raiders fled into the shadows, broken without their leader. The fire was gone, the threat ended, for now. Arya tightened her grip on his hand. "We'll face what comes next together." Ryan managed a tired smile. Together. And in that moment, with the ashes of battle behind them and the stars above, a human and an alien girl, once strangers, now bound by fire, took their first step into a future neither had expected but both would fight to protect.